What's up, everybody? Thanks for joining us for another episode of Warm Weather Fans, the Sunbelt podcast. My name is Brian Stone, joined once again this week by Zeke Palermo and Matt Miguez. How's it going, boys? It was a crazy week in the Sunbelt this past week. As viewers can see, if you're watching this on YouTube, Zeke is shaking his head, and we'll go into the reasons why. But Matt and I have a little bit of I don't know, like frat style hazing to do. I don't know if we're gonna like tape Zeke to the base of the uprights and leave him there, or like what we're gonna do. But it's gonna be a good episode overall. But let's throw it over. Zeke, how's it going? And then Matt, and then we'll go ahead and jump into games here.
I'm not good. All three of my teams lost this weekend, both my college teams and my pro team and the Sunbelt team that I've staked more than anything. I've not staked, I've been the poster child for this Texas State love, and they let me down in monumental fashion. I'm not great. Things are not good over here. Mentally, physically, emotionally, not well.
Matt, how's it going for you?
Well, now I'm going to feel bad for roasting the ever-living crap out of him. So I'm kind of bittersweet, right? The Cajuns get this emotional ACC win on the road, and, everything's biscuits and gravy. And then the Saints did something
I can't
yesterday.
believe they blew that game. I can't
The Saints did something. So, I'm doing better than Zeke. And I'm certainly doing better than the Buffalo Bills. But I don't know that I would say that I'm doing well.
Well, not that anybody asked, but I'm doing well.
How you doing, Brian? What's going on, buddy?
Yeah, thank you. I'm doing well. Georgia Southern came through for me. And the Patriots continue their march toward the number one pick, which
your Patriots
I'm fine
still
with
suck.
it. Yeah, but I'm fine with it. They need multiple years of having a top 3, top 5 pick in order to rebuild this.
That's true.
Shit-stained sandwich that like Bill Belichick left them with as the former GM. So it's whatever for me. I'm numb to it. All right. Let's jump into this past weekend's games. First of all, I wanted to start off by saying and obviously acknowledging App State Liberty was canceled due to Hurricane, Helene?
Mm-hmm.
I think that was how it was pronounced. Yep. Obviously, we put people above football games, so we hope everybody in the Carolinas and Upper Georgia and everything are doing well and everybody's healthy and safe. But yeah, it was a bummer they couldn't play. But once you saw the state of Boone and how deep underwater it was, you were like, okay, I get it.
Yeah, no doubt.
So let's get to the games that did happen. I'm going to recount these as they're posted on ESPN.com as I'm looking at them right now. So they're not going to be in chronological order. But Matt, let me go ahead and start off with the game that you attended. So you were at South Alabama LSU. I was keeping up with this game, a little bit. I was watching Georgia Alabama. Full disclosure, like that game was insane.
What a game!
The vibe that I got, that was an insane game. The vibe that I got from LSU South Alabama was that LSU went up big and then just took their foot off the gas. Do you think that that's accurate?
Yeah, that's kind of exactly what happened. You come out first play of the game, Garrett Nussmeier hits Caden Durham, the true freshman running back, out in the flat, and he takes off for a 71-yard touchdown. South Alabama gets a quick 3-and-out, and then when LSU gets the ball back, they handed it back off to Caden Durham, who ran 86 yards down to the 1. Like, in a matter of 3 minutes, Caden Durham had 150 yards of offense. And so, LSU jumped out to this huge lead. And then, I think in the second half, I think they just got a little complacent. Garrett Nussmeier made some poor decisions, and South Alabama kind of benefited from some good field position. I thought Gio Lopez made a couple of really nice throws down the field, including his one touchdown pass to Anthony Eager. It was just a great ball. And look, I think South Alabama did some things well, and I think that there's some positives that they can take away from this game. But man, you also, and obviously the talent difference is there, right? But you got to give some credit to LSU. I mean, their offense was clicking from the jump. I mean, Garrett Nussmeier throws for a career high 409 passing yards. That's just insane numbers. But no, I thought overall, I know the score looks kind of ugly, but I thought especially offensively, it was a pretty decent night for South Alabama.
Well, we'll get into the South Alabama side of it, but with the injuries that LSU's been experiencing this year, if you're up 35-3, you just want to get out of a game like that healthy. Like it doesn't affect the standing of your season overall, and this was obviously a paycheck game, so for them it was kind of a no-brainer to just take it easy and make sure everybody got to week 6. Yeah, I mean, this one wasn't a surprise with the eventual outcome. I mean, it looked a lot like Georgia Southern playing Ole Miss a week ago, where one team just doesn't have the athletes to keep up with the other. So I mean, and South Alabama, like you said, can maybe build off of this a little bit. Maybe you can find some things to take away from this game that are positive, but I don't really have much more to add than that because you were just thoroughly outplayed by a better team. So, Zeke, if you don't have anything, we can go ahead and get off of this game. So with that, LSU is now 4-1 this season. South Alabama drops to 2-3. This was a noon kick, I believe. James Madison, Ball State, or no, it was 1 o'clock or 1:30 or something like that. I watched the beginning of this game because I saw James Madison offense continues to be extremely explosive. Alonzo Barnett played extremely well, 20 of 28, 280 yards, 5 touchdowns. But I told you guys last week, Ball State's not a serious football team. Like they should not be taken seriously ever. So Ball State basically had one good drive where they were kind of moving the ball down the field. And the rest of the time, they just kind of shot themselves in the foot. And anytime they would make a good play, they would immediately commit a penalty, or they would have a turnover, or just some back-breaking thing would happen. And I don't know that this is the game to kind of put this forth. But the way that Ball State was kind of moving the ball early gives me a little bit of pause for James Madison's defense. Like, we talked about it last week with the UNC game. Like, they scored 70 points. You can't really argue with that. But on the other hand, they did allow 50. So I think if there is going to be an issue that prevents this team from overtaking App and going to the Sun Belt title game and representing the East, or even hell, winning the whole conference, it's going to be their defense. Because there are stretches where other teams, if they were more competent, would just be marching the whole time. But again, they play a pretty easy schedule overall. So I don't know that any of those teams are going to be able to take advantage of that. But offensively, again, they're electric. Alonzo Barnett's figured some things out off the bye week after Gardner-Webb. So,
yeah. I mean, your notes on the defense were what I came in to say about this game. Ball State had several drives of 10-plus plays that one oddly went like 30 to 40 yards. I don't know how that's possible. I simply don't understand how that math works more than for just one drive. They've got a 17.
I was just going to say, they just kept throwing to the flat. Like they refused to push the ball down the field is what it was.
Yeah. They had a 17-play drive that lasted 8 minutes, and they gained 35 yards, turned it over on downs. I don't know how that's possible. 11 plays, 43 yards, ended in an interception. Brian, what you said is just like this could bite them against teams like App. The teams James Madison has played up to this point are Charlotte, Gardner-Webb, Ball State, and then last week UNC. Of those 4 teams, to paraphrase what you said, who is serious about football out of those 4 teams? It's only UNC, and even so, that's a generous even UNC, and you allowed 50. When this team plays Coastal, when this team plays a surprisingly good ULM team, when they get App later in the year, when they get, if they make the Sun Belt Championship game, when they get Texas State or whoever it may be, this defense is going to be in trouble. All right, yeah, get it out now. This defense is going to be in trouble.
I'm sorry. I think you forgot somebody in the Sun Belt that has a pretty good offense.
Oh my God! Anything to add about this game, Matt? Because I'm just reiterating what Brian said.
And you're doing a fantastic job. And I know that you didn't say this team because James Madison doesn't play them. But say James Madison meets Louisiana in the Sun Belt Championship game. Because Texas State is a fraud. There, I said it. We're starting.
All right.
What's your point? A fraud.
Let's go.
And guess what? They want to take their nice little beautiful offer out into the sunny Mountain West Coast. Bye. See ya. What have you done for the conference other than one good year of football? Bye.
Hey,
bye.
Can we hold on? I have a larger point I want to make because we're going to talk about them right after this. But can we put a button on this so that we can move on to that game? Matt, anything on
no,
James?
James Madison blew him out. Good
Ball
job.
State?
He's chomping at the bit.
Okay. Yeah, no, he's pawing at the floor. He's like a dog ready to go outside. Anyway, James Madison moves to 4-0 with the victory. Ball State is now 1-3. Yeah, so Matt was like getting ready to it. Sam Houston kicks a game-winning field goal. Hold on. So not only did Texas State lose this game, that's obvious. They blew a 22-0 first quarter lead to Sam Houston. I tweeted from our account mistakenly, hey, Texas State scoring so fast, McLeod might be able to take the second half off because this looks like they're running away with it. And then their defense, which I have brought up many a time in previews, anytime we preview them in individual games, I'm like, I like the offense. Again, 39 points. Can't really argue with that. The defense, outside of like Ben Bell on the defensive line, you don't have anybody. So if it's not the Arizona State game and you're not getting constant pressure and stopping the run, like madmen, you're in trouble because other teams can just throw the football on you. And that's exactly kind of what happened here, which was they jumped out to a big lead. I don't know if they got like too comfortable or they felt like too confident in themselves based on the way that the game started. But what the hell? Like, what are we doing? And then number 2, Matt, you already alluded to it. Zeke, is this worst case scenario for you if they blow this, what we anticipated them to be one of the top 2 teams in the West, and then they peace out and go play like Boise State and Wyoming every year? Is this like worst case scenario for you?
I'll tell you, was it the week 2 episode that I missed and I left y'all like just 10 words or something crappy and short? My message on Texas State in that game was this team is either going to learn from a very poor performance against I believe it was against Lamar, or they are going to prove to us later in the season that they are still dealing with the same issues that they had in the back half of the last season. That being inability to finish games. I called it a Georgia Southern like softness, which Brian, you've talked about a lot before. And I think the latter is what we have.
No.
I'm not done. I'm going to give you what you want, Matt. I'm about to give you what you want. Texas State, you have made a fool out of me. You've made a fool out of anyone that believed in you. You are fraudulent. You will lose at Troy this week. And I hope you enjoy your time in the Mountain West or the Pac-12 or the Big Sky Conference, because for what you have done to me and my reputation is irreparable, and I will never forgive you.
Damn.
How?
Is that what you wanted to hear, Matt?
I mean, that was beautiful.
Thank you.
So yes, Brian, you brought up the 22-0 first quarter lead. I'm gonna add on to that. Try giving up 19 unanswered in the second half. What?
Yeah.
To an FCS call up. And look, I'm not gonna knock Sam Houston. I've watched them play. They're a solid team. They've got a lot of talent. They played in the FCS National Championship game. What was that, 2 years ago?
Mm-hmm.
Like, they're not a bad program. They're not your typical FCS call up, right? And I get that. However, Texas State across the board has more talent.
Yeah, no question. No question.
Okay, we would agree. How do you lose this game? You have the Sun Belt Player of the Year. You have a guy at running back in Ismail Mahdi that people are talking about being an NFL draft pick. You've got a backup running back in Lincoln Pear, however you say his name, that's been ripping off 10, 15 yards a carry in the Sun Belt his entire career. What are we doing? What are we doing?
Hold
now,
on.
And
oh,
good.
I thought Zeke was going to jump in, so I just wanted to
No.
I wanted to give him kind of my 2 cents on this. Number one, I mean, we already talked about it. The defense is not good. Like, I don't know how many more ways there's to slice this. You know, it's not good. Like, the defensive line has a couple of good players, and everybody from the linebacking core to the secondary, you don't have any difference makers. Like, you truly don't. Like, you were now hindsight, I think you were very lucky to get as close as you did against Arizona State for it to even to be a field goal game. Like, the defensive line for Texas State in that game played out of their mind in stopping the run and forcing Arizona State to throw the football. And the secondary played fairly well. I mean, you know, all things considered, 31 points. But again, this is what my concern was the whole time, which is they have an amazing offense, but there's two things. The defense isn't very good. And number two, there's something with G.J. Kinney and issues with consistency. And you saw it play out last year because he had a weird relationship with T.J. Finley that, you know, he eventually brought a transfer in to replace or compete with Finley, and Finley pieced out. And he was like benching him at the end of in the second half of games last year that they were close. Like, I don't understand. Like, it's almost like a guy where you look at I don't know, like a Cliff Kingsbury when he was coaching the Cardinals, and you're like, you have all of the pieces. What is wrong? Like, I truly don't understand where the disconnect is between the talent you have and what we see on Saturday. There's just there are days where it all clicks and there are no questions, and then there's days where you're like, what are we looking at? Why is this happening? So, I mean, that's sort of my thing. Like, I don't know if it's a motivational issue. I don't know if it's like a preparedness thing or like what, or if they don't make in-game adjustments, but like there's something here that's wrong.
And Zeke, you have anything before I continue?
No, I'm just defeated.
And then
He's broken.
And then shout out to Keith Ciradello, I think is how you pronounce his last name. He's like the top Texas State reporter. Shout out to him for exposing what I'm going to be nice and say mean person that his head coach G.J. Kinney is. The media goes down to field level for the post-game press conference, and officials from Texas Tech or Texas State say, oh, Coach Kinney's press conference has already been completed. To who?
Yeah,
What?
I heard about
To
this. This is
who?
crazy.
Who did he talk to?
That's so weird.
So that right there is a coach that says, I screwed up. I got my ass kicked. I don't want to talk to anybody.
Mm-hmm.
And now you're going to be the little puppy dog that daddy told no. You're going to tuck your tail between your legs and run to mommy, who is the Mountain West, and say, please give me what I want. Please be the good parent.
So can I ask a question? Can I ask a question?
Yeah, of course.
Is the Mountain West that much better of a conference? Like
Hell no.
What is the No, but I mean, like, what is the draw to the Mountain West? Like, is it a money? Like, can they offer more money? Like, I don't understand why that would be an upgrade. If the Pac-12, with again 2 former Pac-12, the way that the Pac-12 was with like Oregon State and Washington State, and they're bringing in all these other schools, and I get that it's almost like the way the Big 12 kind of like restructured. That if you're saying, hey, we're doing that, I'm like, you know what? I don't really have any questions. Like, I'm sure the money is better. They had a rights deal that, I mean, it was screwy, but they had a rights deal before the entire Pac-12 exploded at the end of last year. The Mountain West, I'm like, dude, there are games on like True TV. Like, I watched the Boise Georgia Southern game like on HBO Max because it was on True TV. Like, how could the money be that much? How could it be that much better to where it is an actual draw that you go play Wyoming at 11 o'clock Eastern, 10 o'clock Central at night on HBO Max True TV? Like, I don't understand. Like, how does that work?
Do you guys know the exact amount of money that each school makes in the Sun Belt? Y'all know offhand?
Not
I'm trying to find it, and I don't see it online.
I will say, I know the Mountain West got a new TV deal.
The Mountain West has a new TV deal with Turner Sports and Fox.
As of this past summer.
Right. That pays $5 million a year.
I think the Sun Belt, again, I'm just quickly Googling this. I'm reading $7 million on their ESPN deal. But keep in mind that ESPN deal is 3 years old at this point, and the money in this, the money for these TV deals has just, inflated exponentially even since then. So is it a location thing? I mean, they're equally distant from like UTEP. Isn't UTEP in the Mountain West?
I have a question. Is Nevada's a Mountain West team, right?
Yes.
Okay. I got it mixed up. Georgia Southern Nevada was on True TV. That was the game, not Boise.
Mm-hmm.
Boise was on ESPN Plus. But because they played in Statesboro. But the Nevada game was on True TV and was commentated by Mike Golick Jr. and somebody else I've never seen or heard from before.
This is going to be the Mountain West in 2026 when Boise and all of them go to the Pac-12.
Mm-hmm.
The Air Force, Nevada, UNLV, New Mexico, San Jose State, and Wyoming.
You get to be the best team in that conference.
Yeah, but
do you though?
Look at the teams you're playing too. Like these are not going to be games that people are in demand to watch. And I assume the island games that they get in the Sun Belt, where it's like a Thursday night and you're the only college game on, or you're the only G5 college game on, I assume those are out the window because I've never heard of one being broadcast on True TV in the middle of the week or whatever, Fox, I guess. So I just don't get it. Like, the money has to be unbelievable for you to make that move, because you go to a less competitive conference, which I guess you want to be the Liberty to the Mountain West Conference. But
probably
think about it though. Does anybody Liberty, everybody kind of, winks around it, but like nobody takes the conference they play in seriously. So
No, Kusa sucks.
so you lose one game and then all of a sudden you're disqualified because and they've shown under GJ Kinney they will drop a game here and there that they have no business losing. So I don't really get like what we're doing unless the money is just through the roof. But with those teams, I can't imagine anybody's going to the bank and like backing it up to watch UNLV and Wyoming play.
But here's the thing. To be perfectly honest, and this is coming from a person that, journalistic bias aside, I hate Louisiana Tech. I just do, always have. Now, with that said, I think Louisiana Tech makes the most sense for a replacement school in the Sun Belt.
Yeah.
And the reason that I say that is you already have two built-in rivals in the conference with UL and ULM. Potential for a third. There's kind of a little bit of one brewing with Southern Miss, right? And then the conference gets infinitely better in two sports: men's basketball and baseball.
Mm-hmm.
And geographically, it makes perfect sense. So if I'm the Sun Belt, if Texas State wants to go to the Mountain West, bon voyage. Have fun. Go get Louisiana Tech.
Yeah. So and this has nothing to do with changing conferences, but again, if the Mountain West wants their big team to be Texas State, and Texas State keeps doing this, like games like this and games like last year when you play Arkansas State and you allow 77 points, again, Zeke, I know again, but bon voyage, because you guys have come in, basically accomplished diddly squat. I mean,
Nothing.
let's be honest, nothing. You've accomplished absolutely nothing. You were a joke before GJ Kinney got there, and you still can't find a way to win like big games consistently. So whatever. See ya. Hit the road.
Yeah.
I mean, like it's like we lost Coastal from the East. Great. You guys want to go play in Conference USA or whatever? Like, you guys have really never accomplished anything. I mean, you basically sat out a Sun Belt title game and got to tie. Like, sweet. Whatever.
Yeah. I mean,
so I don't know.
Really, what have either of those schools accomplished?
I think the Coastal Carolina comp is too much. I hear what you're saying. That's a little too much, because Coastal like they've not been able to push it past a certain point, but Coastal at the very least, and frankly it might just be because they've got a fancy turf field, is a national brand, and at the very least has that to offer from a football perspective, is that people have heard of Coastal Carolina, are at least a little interested in Coastal Carolina, less so than when it was Grayson McCall and Chadwell, but I think that comp is a little too aggressive.
But I feel like people only know and care about Coastal Carolina because of that one season.
But they know and care about them.
No, but that's kind of the point, is like, we don't have an Eastern comp for Texas State, which is a team that got really close and just, like, a lot of these teams, say what you want, a lot of these teams that have been in the basement, like the ULMs of the world, have been in the basement for a long time. And then you have like the Troys of the world that have multiple conference titles. You got App, who has multiple conference titles. You got Georgia Southern, who's got one. So at least there's that. It's like the teams that are bad typically stay bad. Texas State is kind of like a recent development. So I don't have a 1-to-1 comp except for Coastal, because they got close and they basically have a share of a conference title by default. They didn't even play the game. So like, that's kind of what I mean, is like, and no, I don't really think Coastal's a national brand. Like, they had one really good season, and I know they have the teal turf and all of that stuff, but like, again, you have a team that is very good, but has never kind of climbed the mountain. And now you're off to the Mountain West. So, have fun playing, again, UNLV or whoever. Like, sweet. That'd be sick. Do we have anything else on this game specifically? I know we talked a lot about realignment, but yeah,
Nope.
this was just a hideous way to lose. I mean, quite frankly, like this shouldn't have happened. With Jordan McLeod and again, Matt kind of read off all the weapons that they have. Why are you in games that come down to the last play against a recent FCS call up that isn't named James Madison? Is kind of my question. So, I mean, I know Sam Houston's good, but I don't. They hadn't had that like immediate impact that James Madison had, where it was like game one, you knew, you were like, oh, I totally misjudged this team. Like, I think Sam Houston 2 years ago or last year that they came up.
This is their first year.
Oh, this is their first Sunbelt season?
Is
or
it?
not Sunbelt
Yes.
season? The first FBS season? Oh, wow. Okay, so I
Yes.
thought this was year 2. I thought this was year 2, and I thought they weren't
Let
good
me
last year.
let me double check that.
Because I
right.
thought Kennesaw was the new team this year.
Yeah, they are.
I'm sorry, this is their second year.
Yeah, so last year didn't go well, as far
Even
as I
so.
remember. Yeah, even so. But, all right, so Sam Houston with the victory moves to 4-1 this season. Texas State is now 2-2. This is going to hurt their chances of going to the playoff as the G5 representative. And wait, Matt, can you answer me a question? Can you go undefeated with 2 losses? Is that how that works?
No, you can't. No, you cannot.
All right. So next game here, Louisiana. Matt, another one of your games, defeats Wake Forest 41-38. Frankly, I did not watch any of this game. I had a lot going
Shame on you.
on Saturday. I had a lot going on as far as keeping up with games and stuff on Saturday. But yeah, man, dude, great win for Louisiana, no question about it. I will say, when I saw Louisiana jumped up early in the first quarter, and I was like, damn, I made the wrong pick, Louisiana. And then Wake Forest kind of came storming back, and I was like, ooh, I may have spoke too soon. Like, we got a football game on our hands. So honestly, I kind of expected this to go like Louisiana, Iowa State a couple years ago, where Louisiana just dominated them for like 4 straight quarters. And then when I saw Wake kind of had a pulse, I was like, oh, this could come back to bite them. But it didn't. They won.
Mm-hmm.
So Louisiana jumped out to that 14-3 lead in the first quarter. They really were doing whatever they wanted to offensively. And then in the second quarter was when things kind of got a little interesting. You had 2 players get ejected for targeting in the second quarter. And so, Wake Forest was able to take advantage of those penalties and, the absences of those players. One of them being Casey Osai, your leading tackler from the linebacker spot. And then in the third quarter, you ready for this? 2 more players got ejected for targeting. The Cajuns lost 4 players for targeting. And when you look at them, 2, if you go back and find them, because they're all, on social media and whatnot, 2 of them, obvious targetings. Like, okay, he's getting ejected. The other 2, I'm not quite sure what this officiating crew was looking at. Like, I'm really not. And also, I'm glad that Damon Claiborne, Wake Forest's running back, wasn't seriously injured. But there should be a rule where if you have to be carted off the field, you can't return to the game. Can't return to the game. The guy got carted off the field for a dislocated knee.
Oh. And he came
They
back?
They brought him to the locker room. They popped his knee back in. They put a brace on it, and he came back in the game. And not only did he come back into the game, he had a 60-yard touchdown run after he came back into the game.
I bet he was. I bet he was like. Do you guys remember that game years ago where Aaron Rodgers like left the game and people were like, "Oh, he dislocated his elbow," and then he came back and he beat the Bears, but he went to the post game presser, or no, he was talking to Aaron Andrews and he's spoken with a Southern twang because he was so
Yeah.
hopped up on painkillers. Like that's what
Yep.
that reminds me of. That guy probably couldn't tell you what 2 + 2 equals at the end of that game.
You're probably right. You're probably right. And look, so the second half, it was 21-17 at halftime. The second half was an absolute shootout, just back and forth, back and forth. And right there at the end, the Cajuns got a field goal with 52 seconds left. Wake Forest marched down the field, lined up to kick the game-tying field goal, and he doinked it.
Yeah.
So look, again, I was really impressed with the offense. They were able to do what they wanted pretty much all game. Ben Woldridge was 20 of 29 for 257 and 3 touchdowns. Elijah Davis had 95 yards on the ground. Defensively, I would have liked to see you make a couple more stops. I know you lost 4 starters. But look, the resolve of a team to have to face all of that, bad officiating, you're playing an ACC school on the road, you lose 4 guys to targeting, and you still find a way to win. I mean, that's just it's a huge win for this program. Huge win for Coach Michael Desramo. It's his first P4 win as a head coach, and so it was a really good day for Cajun Nation on Saturday. There's no doubt.
Matt, what is the real Louisiana defense look like? Because this team is consistently putting up points across all opponents, but you held Grambling and Kennesaw to 10 each, but then against Tulane and Wake Forest, it's 41-38. Where in the middle of those two extremes is the real defense here?
A happy medium between the two.
Sure.
I think that obviously you have a new defensive coordinator this year, in Jim Salgado. So I think there's still, that ironing out period, right? But when you look at the Wake Forest and Tulane game, a lot of the credit has to go to the opposition.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Tulane's legit.
Yeah,
they are legit.
Right.
And Wake Forest, look, like I said, I think you kind of fell behind the 8 ball with a couple of key players getting ejected, and they were able to take advantage of some penalties, and really just kind of capitalize on momentum, right? And so look, obviously you don't want to give up 41 and 38 in back-to-back weeks, but I don't think it's a hit the panic button on the Cajuns defense. Casey Osai is still a fantastic linebacker. You've got pieces in the secondary with Keon Martin. I would like to see the front 4 get a little more of a pass rush on opposing quarterbacks. That's something that they've kind of struggled to do so far this year. But I think your back, 6 or 7 is in great shape as you head into Sunbelt play. But we'll get into it when we preview. I am worried about next week's game against Southern Miss, to be honest.
Okay. Matt, just to put a button on this game, I forgot to bring this up after the Tulane game, but I watched the TikTok that you made about Desramo's press conference where he was like, the fans just think I'm a dummy or a dumbass or whatever he said.
Yeah.
Well, it reminded me of, have you ever seen that show, I Think You Should Leave, on Netflix?
Yeah.
Okay, it reminded me of the coffin flop sketch where he goes, "They just think I'm some dung hick." Like that's what him saying that reminded me of. The fans just think I'm some dumb hick, and he's like, and I was like, that made me laugh so hard.
So the reason that he was so fired up in that post-game press conference, obviously you lost an emotional game that you feel like you shouldn't have. But that specific quote was, if you remember, late in the game, it was like a 4th and 9, something like that, and the Cajuns go for it, and they end up hitting the check down. Yeah. He hits Elijah Davis out in the flat and gets absolutely nowhere. And so somebody in the press conference said, coach, what was the design on that play? Like, what was the play?
What was the idea or
Right.
the concept? Yeah.
And so Des was like, oh, the number one route was a deep shot down the field, but I guess Ben just thought it wasn't there. And then he goes, I know a lot of y'all think I'm a dumbass, but I actually had a solid play drawn up there. Like, I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Which tells me that the coach reads social media, which
don't love that.
Do what you want, but that's not great.
Well, I will say I kind of wish some Sunbelt coaches, and wink, 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 read a little bit more social media, because because some of them continue to do the same dumb stuff every single week, and if they read a little more social media, they would be a little more self-aware and go, hey, if I do this, they're gonna make fun of me on Sunday. Maybe I should.
Is this coach you're referring to in the Eastern Division?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. All right. So with the win, Louisiana is 3-1 this season. Wake Forest is 1-3. Okay. So I'm not gonna call this the Georgia State game by its dumb agriculture-friendly name.
The Georgia Grown Bowl, baby!
Those words in that order will never leave my lips. I promise you that. I will go to my grave having never said those three words in consecutive form. Okay, I want to set the stage for this because we recorded last Tuesday, and as far as people that listened know, Zeke took Georgia Southern plus 3.5 on the road. Now, what I will say is, what people don't know is Friday afternoon, I get a message in our group from Zeke saying, you can put me on Georgia State minus 3.5. Freddie Brock is going to shred that defense. As far as I know, I looked at the stats. I'm pretty sure Freddie Brock ran for under 50 yards. Am I correct on that?
36 on 10 carries.
Okay,
I just want to
clarify. So I don't know if Ben Moore had you at gunpoint while you were sending me that text, but that was how it read, and I kept saying blink twice if you're in danger. So
you can't tell me that's not a solid line of thinking though, right?
No, it's not, because what you were equating Freddie Brock with Ashton Janty, or whichever Ole Miss running back decided to run for 150 yards against us. Like, Freddie Brock's a nice little player. He is not Ashton Janty. So you being like, he's gonna shred this defense, I was like, if anything that made me double down on the Georgia Southern take. So Georgia Southern wins 38-21 in a game that was not even really as close as it seems, because Matt, I don't know if you watched this one, but if Georgia Southern did not attempt to return a punt in this game, they would have won by 30. Like, Georgia State has one of the worst defensive units I've ever seen with my own two eyes. They cannot stop the run. They can't stop the pass. Georgia Southern dog walked them basically every offensive possession. If Georgia Southern did not score in this game, it was because Georgia Southern screwed up themselves. Not that Georgia State made any plays. It was, hey, we went we got to fourth down because our dumb OC decided to run quarterback power on 3rd and 1 on the first drive and ran directly into the back of his lineman, and it was 4th down. And that was the type of stops Georgia State was getting in this game.
So I have a question, and I want to pose it to either one of you, considering you both write for either team. For somebody that didn't watch the game, has no idea how things transpired, it looks to me like Georgia Southern went back to being an option team. They dominated on the ground.
Not option, but they finally did what my big complaint was, and I guess it took getting their former offensive coordinator Brian Ellis out of the building to allow them to finally do this. But they had games in the past 2 years where if they just committed to running the football, it would have went like this. Like there were games like I think it was Old Dominion last year. Like there are games that they've played where if they just kept doing what worked, they would have won, and they decided we're not going to do that anymore. So what they did was basically they found out, hey, guess what? Georgia State can't tackle OJ Arnold in space. Or as the game went on, they're getting worn down trying to tackle Jalen White over and over and over and over again. And basically what happened was Georgia Southern just shoved it in their face for, especially in the second half when they were just trying to bleed clock and get out of there. Like Georgia State, again, they have no defensive playmakers. They can't stop anybody. Like even when you go back and look at the game they beat Vanderbilt, like it was a high-scoring game. So again, I don't really understand where Zeke got the line of thinking of, hey, this is going to go totally different. Georgia State's going to get stops. What?
I'm not going to let you get away with this because let's not discredit the fact Georgia Southern had go ahead of this game had like a bottom 10 rush defense in the country. And if State has been good at anything, if they've been good at anything all year, it's been running the ball.
Who they played, it's different. There are levels to this. Georgia State was playing, they played Vanderbilt and like the Sisters of the Poor for the first like 4 games or whatever. Georgia Southern played a number 6 ranked Ole Miss team. They played Ashton Janty, who's not even probably, he's the best running back in the country, like bar none. I don't know if you guys saw the highlights on Saturday when he did the Marshawn Lynch beast mode run impersonation. Like, yeah, he's the best running back in the country. Now, once I saw all of that, I said, Georgia State doesn't have anybody on that level to be able to run the football. Like, again, your Freddie Brock take, I was like, what are we talking about? Freddie Brock is not that good. He's just not. Like, he's a fine running back.
He ran for like 240, 250 in a bowl game.
Against who?
Utah State.
Okay, there's your answer.
State!
It was a program record.
I would have ran for 250 against Utah State, Zeke.
Blake Anderson was off doing God knows what that ended up getting him canned. So, like, y'all ran for 1.9 yards a carry as a team.
Yeah, dude.
Right.
To answer your initial question, Matt, Southern absolutely ran the ball down State's throat. There's no question about that. But consider that they also ran almost 90 plays of offense. And when you're running 90 plays of offense, you're bound to put up numbers like that. Obviously, the 5.4 is incredibly impressive.
Because the Panthers defense can't get a stop, which was my point.
I'm not discrediting that. I'm just answering Matt's prior question.
No, I know.
The running game.
Zeke, watch me. Watch me, Zeke. What am I doing?
World's tiniest violin.
There was never expectations. I put my own foot in my mouth. I screwed myself. There was no expectations. Vanderbilt's going to be
You did it with your beloved Panthers, and now you've done it with Texas State. It's okay, buddy. You're gonna learn.
I'm gonna learn at some point, I promise.
And he called himself last week's episode a quote real ball knower, and then made those 2 calls. And how about this? Again, we can move off of this game because I think we've done it justice. But he had the pick right. All he had to do was not say anything, and he would have been dead correct.
His mouth.
Yeah.
So looking at this Marshall game,
foot. I know this isn't a foot, but like foot. Oh,
yeah, I know.
Yeah, right in the mouth.
Hey, Christian Valaire, 356. That's pretty nice.
He's never. I think he threw 3 picks.
Yes.
Cat, I don't know what kind of French y'all speak in Atlanta, but IEUX is not an ER.
Matt, I'm on your side. I have a take, and there is no factual basis for this. He will not be a good quarterback until he pronounces his name the way that it should be pronounced. How about that?
I don't know how you get ER out of IEUX.
Christian Valaire also completed like basically half of his pass attempts. So
Yeah.
the yardage was good, and like basically there were two like busted coverages that he took advantage of where
Mhm.
he just threw it deep, and Southern just had like one high safety and just didn't have anybody back there to kind of play zone or bracket anybody. But other than those two throws, it was a lot of like he couldn't get out of his own way.
State's 21 points came off a 76-yard touchdown pass, like Brian just talked about, 58-yard touchdown pass, like Brian just talked about, and then a 1-yard touchdown run from none other than Freddie Brock after the ball just kind of slipped out of JC French's hand. Just one of those things. He didn't like really fumble it. It just kind of happened. I didn't take too much issue with the fumble, but that set up a 6-yard drive concluded by a 1-yard run. So State realistically, like if this game is played over again, scores 7 points tops.
Yeah, if the game's played again, the final score is like 45-10. So
Not good.
and I will say this. I have been, and I said this kind of to start the season, but it kind of got lost in the shuffle of things and how concerned I was about Georgia Southern's defense. I think JC French is a hell of a quarterback, like for what they want to do. Like he has been exactly what the doctor ordered. Now the defense could get a lot better. Like I'm not saying that because that's the thing that's holding them back. But all they needed was someone that wasn't going to turn the ball over 100 million times the way that Davis Brin did. That was all they needed. Make some throws, make a couple plays. Brian Ellis stopped throwing the ball 70 times a game with the most turnover prone quarterback in the nation. That was all they had to do. And they said, nope, simply couldn't do it last year. So again, he's exactly what the doctor ordered. And that you kind of see now, if the defense was better, they'd have a higher ceiling. But right now, he's exactly what they need as far as a quarterback archetype. And he can run too. So he's not a total statue back there. But anyway, Georgia Southern defeats Georgia State in modern day hate. Georgia Southern is now 3-2, 1-0 in the Sun Belt. Georgia State drops to 2-2 and is now 0-1 in the Sun Belt. All right. Next game here. Marshall defeats Western Michigan at home 27-20. Stone Earl returns from what was he supposed to have had, a finger injury or a hand injury that he suffered, I think, in the previous game, right? Like he had to leave. Am I wrong on this?
Okay. He did leave the game with injury against, was it Ohio that they played? Ohio State 2 weeks ago.
I think so.
He left briefly in like the third quarter, but the game was obviously over by that point anyway.
So Stone Earl throws 3 touchdown passes against the Broncos. Marshall allowed Nixon, the Western Michigan running back, to run for 146 yards on 23 carries. Again, if Georgia Southern this upcoming week decides to establish the run again and will actually stick with it, there could be a replay of this. And I think Southern is a better team on the whole than Western Michigan is. But regardless, good win for Marshall, man. Like these are the type of games you have to win because you don't have a lot of guaranteed W's on your schedule with the kind of the talent level they have. So, I don't think Charles Huff has quite saved his job. But again, these are the ones you have to win because in conference there aren't a lot of gimmies, outside of the Southern Misses of the world and maybe Old Dominion if they don't decide to score that week. So yeah, good. I mean, good win all around. You kind of have found a quarterback in Stone Earl a little bit. Like I don't think he's got the highest ceiling of any quarterback in the conference. Like he's not Alonzo Barnett numbers, but he's good enough. I think. Like he's a good little quarterback.
And it seems like they, we'll see how it shakes out as he gets more volume. But it seems like they found a guy to replace Rasheen Ali as well. With AJ Turner, 124 yards. He did it on 9 carries. One of those was 67 yards. But still 8 carries for, what is that? 60, 50 and change. That's a pretty good day for him. I think for Marshall, this is just like their first even comp game of the year because they played Stony Brook to start, then played Virginia Tech, a mid Virginia Tech team, and Ohio State. So this is like their first even comp opponent, and they won it. And that's all you can do. When they play App this upcoming week, I think that'll be a real indicator for each side as to where this team goes. But I think Marshall has proved, at least through this game, proved to me or made me believe that it's not necessarily time to hit the panic button quite yet. They're not in a place they need to be. But like this is a Marshall team that could ultimately make a bowl. That I don't know if you would have said that about them 2 weeks ago.
No. So, Matt, do you have anything to add on this one?
I just realized that I was sharing some thoughts, in between you guys talking, and I was on mute. No, I
didn't realize you were talking.
When I realized I was muted, I was sitting here while Zeke was talking, just going like, but anyways, no, I mean, it's a solid win for Marshall. Like you said, these are the games that you have to win. And they were able to do that. Although it got a little scary in the third quarter, they were able to dig down deep and find a way to get it done, which is what good teams do. So, credit to Marshall. And now, like you said, there's not many gimme wins the rest of the way. So they're going to have to find them where they can get them.
Yeah. So Marshall with the win moves to 2-2 this season. Western Michigan is now 1-3 with the loss. Getting into this next one, Old Dominion defeats Bowling Green on the road as a 9.5-point dog. This is the quintessential how did Old Dominion win this game? I think they have like one or two of these in them a year where you go through and you look at like the box score and you're like, where did the yardage come from? Like how did they score points? It was like I think Grant Wilson, I looked at the stats earlier. What didn't he finish 6 of 14 for like 118 yards or something like that?
And 2 touchdowns.
Like again, how do you win games with that little efficiency? Is like kind of what I don't really understand how they find a way to do this. They do it like twice a year.
Here's what I don't understand. Bowling Green finishes with 70 more yards of total offense than you, 7 more first downs than you, and had the football for 17 minutes more than you. And yet you found a way. I don't get
Bowling
it.
Green and Bowling Green also had a receiver almost go for 200 yards and 2 scores and found a way to lose by 3 against Old Dominion of all teams.
Old Dominion. And here's the disgusting thing. You talked about 118 yards from Grant Wilson. 75 of them came on one play.
Yeah.
Like Old Dominion wasn't good.
But they do this. Like I don't understand
yet
it.
They won. Look, credit to them. I mean, good job.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't even know. This is you didn't deserve to win, yet you still did. Kudos. Good job, Monarchs.
That's what they're best at.
That's all I've got. Kudos to y'all.
Were either of you watching any of this game or know why Grant Wilson left? Because I know he dealt with an injury a couple weeks ago. And he came out at some point for Colton Joseph. I'm just curious if because Grant Wilson has been pretty solid this year. Out of character for an Old Dominion quarterback. He's been good enough.
He's all right. I mean, he's fine.
Hey man, here's the thing. Marshall's been struggling to find a quarterback that is all right and good enough.
Yeah.
So Old Dominion had a guy. I just, you worry about that for their long-term future if he has to miss more time.
I don't know.
Hmm.
I did see that he left the game, but I didn't see the reason. I mean, you assume it's injury, but I don't know if it's the same thing that was ailing him before or not.
Right.
That got exacerbated by it. But yeah, again, Old Dominion just finds a way to do this like once or twice a season, where you go look at the stats at the end of the game, and you're like, your quarterback had less than 120 yards passing, and your leading rusher only had 74 yards. How did you scrounge up? It's like someone going to the store with like a handful of pocket change and like dropping it on the counter in front of the person and be like, count that for me. Like that's what Old Dominion. That's a weird analogy, but that's the way Old Dominion kind of plays football, which is like, hey, I just saved up enough. You're gonna have to count these pennies, and so that's the way they win football games at Old Dominion. But Old Dominion is now 1-3 with the victory, first win of the year. Bowling Green drops to 1-3. Disappointing game for them considering how they had played in recent weeks. Last game of the night, all of us kind of saw this coming, shockingly, and it's always kind of crazy when a line like this goes up, and all three of us are just scratching our heads, being like, "What is Vegas thinking by putting this line at Troy -7? What has anybody for Troy done to earn us a touchdown favorite over anybody except like the Florida A&M game?" Is my question. They have nothing on offense, nothing. They cannot score points. Like, and I know, what was it? The quarterback, Goose Crowder got hurt.
Mm-hmm.
And Caldwell was already injured, I believe. So
Correct.
They were down
to
kind of their
third string, Tucker Kilcrease.
But even still, like, they just don't have anything on offense. Like, everything that was a part of these previous Troy teams is just gone now. They don't run an exciting scheme. We talked about it last week. And so you're easy to plan for because you're not talented on offense and you don't run anything interesting. So, and your defense looked, passable in this game. They've looked bad in weeks before this, but they were passable in this game. Anytime you allow 13 points, you should probably win that game. And they can't muster enough on offense to make anything happen. So it's gonna be a long season for them. But those two Sun Belt titles will keep them warm at night, I guess.
It's going to be a long season for UL too, though. Shoot, against this bad Troy team, they were only able to put up 13. On the converse.
Oh, you mean ULM?
Oh, I'm sorry, ULM. Did I say UL?
Yeah.
Yes, you did.
Like, my condolences.
I was like, what are
ULM? Just say, hang on.
No. UL Monroe, like, shoot. Is this the least impressive 3-1 start ever?
I don't know, man. Look, like they shouldn't. It's impressive because of the team that's doing it. Not you don't need to watch the games, but the way they're doing it it's like playing small ball in baseball.
So here's the question that I have for you two. I'm gonna read off the rest of ULM's schedule, okay, and you tell me if they can find 3 more wins.
Okay.
James Madison.
No.
Southern Miss.
Yeah.
Very plausible.
South Alabama.
Probably not.
I don't know. South Alabama sometimes. South Alabama sometimes gives me pause. Like, they will have a game like where they beat App, and then they'll just have a totally inexplicable performance, and you'll be like, I don't understand what happened here.
Marshall.
That's another maybe.
Texas State.
No. Probably not.
Auburn.
No.
That's a no.
Maybe.
Arkansas State.
Have you guys seen Auburn play this year?
Yeah, they're pretty bad. They're pretty bad. Arkansas State.
That's another maybe. You have no idea if they can run the ball and limit the amount of passes they have to throw, and they just own the time of possession. Arkansas State could be in real trouble because their defense is along the lines of Georgia State's, where they thank the heavens when they get a stop on defense.
And so the reason that I'm asking your thoughts on this is because Monroe has only been to one bowl game in their program's history,
Mm-hmm.
and it was in 2012.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They got their doors blown off by Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
So could we see a world where Monroe wins 3 more games and goes to their second bowl game in program history in year 1 under Brian Vincent?
Certainly.
Like, that's
I
wild
mean,
to think about. They might build a
it is.
statue of the man Monroe.
Yeah. It
Like,
is crazy to think about. We would have never said before the season, like, this is going to happen. I think before the season we said 4 wins would be like overachieving here based on the roster. And they're at 3 as it stands today. And they play Southern Miss again, or they play Southern Miss, which is almost certainly a 4th win because that team seems to have just thrown the towel in on this season already. And then you got a bunch of teams that are so hot and cold you can't get a read on them.
Yeah. You've got 3 maybes in there. Like,
yeah,
we could be looking at a 6-6 Monroe team.
Imagine
that's crazy.
Imagine they lose to, like, South Alabama and Arkansas State are losses, and their 6th or 5th win of the season is against Auburn in Auburn. Like, think about that.
Oh,
Hugh
God.
Freeze is going to get a rainbow strip like you do in Mario Kart out of Auburn. Like, he is just going to be, don't pass go, don't collect $200, go straight to jail.
Get out.
Crazier things have happened.
But yeah, again, going back to the game, obviously they have a very simple methodology of own the time of possession, run the football. Hardy, 106 yards rushing. And guess what? If the teams you play can't score points, they can't make you pay. So, again, if any of those teams come out and they're offensively challenged or defensively they can't get stops, like, yeah, they could win 6 games. I mean, they could.
Before we move on to our week 6 picks, Zeke, I just want to commend you for being a good sport while eating your crow. You handled it very graciously. And as a token of Brian and I's appreciation, I would like to digitally present you with a warm weather fan sticker.
Yeah, come on! Much needed win for me, fellas.
There you go.
Very attractive. We'll find a way to get them to our fans. Thanks for putting those together, Matt. Big win for me to get one of those digitally. I've already updated my resume.
Yes.
All right. Woo. So we are on to week 6 in the Sun Belt. Starting on Thursday, ESPNU, 7:00 Eastern time. Texas State is traveling to Troy to take on the offensively challenged Trojans. I don't think we have any feel for who's going to start at quarterback for Troy, correct? Like, 0.
No clue. No clue.
Okay. Texas State is a 14-point road favorite, which is nuts. That should tell you exactly what everybody thinks of Troy at this point. Over-under's 57.5. I'm taking Texas State for 2 reasons. Number one, we already talked about how offensively challenged Troy is, so I don't know how they're going to score any points. And number 2, yeah, that was weird. I don't know how that happened. Number 2, I think Texas State is going to be pissed. And I think they're going to take out all their frustrations on this Troy team that can't score the football, can't put the ball in the end zone. They settle for field goals way too often, and the coach just simply isn't aggressive enough when they are in those sort of goal-to-go situations. He's happy settling for 3. So with all that said, Texas State, I think, routs them. And if they don't, then, Zeke, you need to be even more concerned than you were after the Sam Houston game if they don't win this game big.
Yeah. For burning me last week, and Matt's just playing with it. He's always got, like, he's trying to figure out what feature he can turn on at all times. And if you want to see what we're talking about, visit us on YouTube, Warm Weather Fans. For burning me
Subtle
last
plug there.
week, thank you. Working on it. For burning me last week, I still think Texas State beats Troy, but 14, at any point, 14 is a fairly high line. Give me Troy to cover, but Texas State outright.
Matt?
So I'm struggling with this one because I feel like the obvious answers to be to take Texas State minus 14. But at the same time, this feels like the game where Troy shows up. It's at home. It's nationally televised. It's against a team that everybody thinks is better than you. Like, I don't know. I just have this weird feeling that Troy shows up. I'm going to take the over in this game. I think for some weird reason, I think there's a lot of points scored in this game. So yeah, I'm gonna take the over.
Of all the sides you could have taken, the over would have been my absolute last on my list because I think if Troy wins this game, it's got to be 20 to 17. Like, they're not going to put up enough points to help you hit the over. But
We'll
hey,
find out.
if you, listen, you can play it two different ways. You could say, hey, this is going to be a high scoring game. It's going to hit the over. Or you could say Texas State runs them out of the stadium and it doesn't matter. And they basically hit the over by themselves. That's fine too. So you could hit it for two different ways. That's fine. All right. Starting with Saturday, we got kind of a short slate of games because a couple of teams are off and we're well into conference play. 3:30 ESPN Plus. App State's traveling to Marshall in a semi-Mountaineer-ish rivalry game. They've got a weird kind of relationship between these two teams. Marshall, a 3-point favorite at home. Over-under's 58.5. How far the mighty have fallen if Marshall is getting 3 at home against App. The pick in this one is simple to me, but I'm sure this is going to come back to bite me. But if App can't get up for this game after having, 10 days to kind of lick their wounds or whatever, they're not going to do it at any point this season. So I'm going to take App plus 3. I think they win the game outright. And if they don't, then I'm not even an App fan, but I'm officially on the fire Sean Clark bandwagon if they can't find a way to win this game.
I'm not going to go that far. Strictly because of what they've dealt with this past week. That can, like, their practice schedule got all messed up. There's in a typical circumstance, I would say no question, if you don't go to Huntington and win, Sean Clark's in serious trouble. Now I still think it's a bad loss if you go to Huntington and lose. But I don't think that I'm going to look at this game and go to be fired. Now, with that being said, I agree with you. I think App gets up. I think that Joey Aguilar has a great bounce back game, and App wins by 2 scores. But that'll make it even more special considering, again, like I said, everything they've gone through this week with the hurricane.
Matt, September 25th. 2006. Saints' first game back from Katrina. They romp the Falcons.
Steve Gleason, baby.
Nowhere near. It won't be nearly as large a gap. That was a 23-3 win for the Saints. But give me App State here.
All right. A lot of 7 o'clock games.
They're bringing up Rebirth.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of 7 o'clock games this week. I wish they would have spread them out a little better because we have 4 games going during one time slot, and it's going to make it really difficult to keep up with any of these. But the first 7 o'clock game, ESPN Plus, Old Dominion's traveling to Conway to take on Coastal Carolina. Coastal is a 5.5 point home favorite. Over-under's 54.5. I'm going to take the under. Neither of these teams score a ton of points. I know Old Dominion hit 30 last week, but I don't think that's typical I think that was they have one or two outlier games per season where you're like, I don't understand, the box score doesn't add up to me. So I'm going to take the under. I think this one is a really low scoring game because both of these teams are kind of offensively challenged.
It's going to be low scoring, but it's in total. But I think the final is like Coastal 28, Old Dominion 10. Give me Coastal here. I was laughing as you were reading it off because that line feels far, far too generous in Old Dominion's favor. Give me Coastal.
Yep. I agree with Zeke. Coastal straight up.
Well, they also, Old Dominion also does this where they play one of those games where they win a game they shouldn't have, and then usually they crash and burn the following week, and then later they sort of build back up to another upset victory. So yeah, if I was taking a side, I would say Coastal as well, but I just don't. Neither of these, Vasco has not looked good as of late, so I don't think Coastal's going to score a ton of points, and I don't know what the quarterback situation looks like with Grant Wilson banged up or whatnot, or whatever's going on with him. So I just can't bet on those two quarterbacks to hit 55 combined. Another 7:00 kick here. South Alabama is traveling to Arkansas State in Jonesboro. ESPN Plus. South Alabama is a 2.5 point road favorite, over under 62.5. I'm going to take South Alabama minus 2.5. Until Arkansas State learns to stop an opposing offense, I can't, in good conscience, really. I can take overs with them. I don't know that I can give them any real credit until they learn to stop another team.
Give me the under for a team that I've been told has just this better than I believe offense in Arkansas State. I've been very underwhelmed by them, and remember, my bar for them was already very low. South Alabama, I mean, they can put up points. They've shown that, especially against teams without defenses. It's not going to be a replication of Northwestern State, obviously, but they can score points. Give me the under. I think it could come close to 62.5, but there's no way both teams put up, what is that, like 4 touchdowns apiece? Not a chance.
Yeah.
I'm actually going to take Arkansas State at home. I've been high on them all season. Some people have called me crazy for being that. Zeke being one of them. I wasn't
ball knowers. Ball knowers have called you crazy.
Ball knowers.
No,
right,
you don't.
right.
No, you're not a ball knower. Stop. That is that. If that was a Boy Scout badge, that has been ripped off of your little sash. It's done. You have to earn that back.
I'm digitally rescinding your sticker.
Yeah.
No, give me Arkansas State. They're at home. I think Jalen Rayner is going to have a solid performance. It's going to be close. I wouldn't be surprised if South Alabama wins the game. But I don't know. I've got a feeling the Red Wolves can get it done at home, so I'll take Arkansas State.
Can you guys fact check something for me? Because I'm not on a really high powered computer here. Has Gio Lopez not thrown a pick yet this year? On ESPN, it has everybody's leading passer stat line. And it says Gio Lopez 1,014 yards, 10 touchdowns, 0 picks. Is that correct?
No interceptions across 114 attempts.
Yep.
10-0 touchdown interception ratio.
I just don't. I just don't have the faith that Arkansas State's going to be able to either get enough stops or force turnovers against Gio Lopez. That's kind of the basis of my pick. Another 7:00 game, all of them 7:00. ESPNU, James Madison travels to Monroe. JMU is a 17-point road favorite. Over-unders 49.5. I'll probably regret this. Give me ULM plus 17.
Same.
I like the pick too.
I don't know. Alonzo Barnett's probably going to drop 6 touchdowns on them for some reason. But I just feel UL Monroe makes these games really down and dirty kind of makes teams kind of get in the trenches and beat them one-on-one. And I know James Madison's been on a crazy tear the last couple weeks, but again, UL Monroe, the only time they've looked truly bad, they played the number 1 team in the country.
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
So
Yeah,
I
look,
just
there's something about Malone Stadium. The place needs a major upgrade, but anytime somebody plays there, it's down to the wire. I mean, look at App State. Was that last year where
yeah,
ULM had
and
ULM had to miss a field goal to win it?
No, even worse. Remember, they had the ball. They were up, I think 3. They had the ball on like the 1, and they ran on 4th
Oh,
and
that's
1
right. That's right.
like an RPO out of the I formation on 4th and 1, or like 4th and goal
Yep,
from the 1.
That's right. Yeah.
And
So
but all I was going to say was,
good.
look at those 2 teams the way that they stood last year, and tell me why ULM was in that game.
100%. That's what I'm referring to as the Malone magic. Yeah. I'm not going to say that ULM's going to win the game, but they're going to keep it within 17 for sure.
I like James Madison to win, but ULM covers.
Yeah, that's the way I feel about it too. I think James Madison pulls it out at the very end, but I think this is going to be ugly. UL Monroe, they just got something about them. They just make teams play ugly. Like, you have to win ugly unless you're Texas. So, and as good as JMU is, they're not Texas. The last game of the night, Louisiana Matt going to Southern Miss, Hattiesburg, UL 14.5 point road favorite, over unders 57.5. Give me UL, dude. Southern Miss just feels like they are in The Walking Dead, and they're just waiting to get their head chopped off by like a main character. And Will Hall kind of feels the same way. He feels like he just wants to get bought out so fast. Like, he just wants his buyout and wants to hit the road. Anybody?
No, you're right. Pretty straight, cut and dry.
Give me Southern Miss to cover.
Explain this.
Look at the history between these two.
I don't care about the history. Southern
I
Miss
do.
is so bad, dude.
I do.
But Southern Miss
They
is
weren't
so
great
bad.
last year
How
either.
are they?
They weren't good last year either.
No, I agree, but they seem checked out as a team. Like, there's like being bad, and then there's just not caring. They seem like they do not care, from like the coach all the way down to the players. And at least last year you could be like, well, they got Frank Gore, he might score some points. This year I'm like, who, you think Tate Rodemaker's going to throw 3 touchdowns? Like, probably not.
So here's my issue. The Cajuns are 11-41 all time against Southern Miss. The Cajuns haven't won in Hattiesburg since 1989.
And they get their first on Saturday.
Well, how many times have they played like since then? Because these teams weren't in the same conference for ever. This isn't like they've been.
So since that game in 89, they played in 90, 93, 94, 95, 96, 98, 99, 01, 03, 08, 16, 22, 23.
So you're only looking at the past 2 years then.
Yeah, throw out the Brett Favre years. Like, they do not have Brett Favre under center.
and that's fair. I don't know, man. I think the Cajuns win, but I'm not comfortable picking them to win by 2 scores.
All right. Well, we'll see, but I just get a different, even with the bad teams in this conference, I don't get the same vibe as I get from Southern Miss. Southern Miss feels like one of those NFL teams when it's like in December, you can tell the coach is getting ready to be canned and everybody is just like, who cares? You know what I mean? Like, think about, you want an NFL comp? Think about the Thursday night game last year between the Raiders and the Chargers, where the Raiders scored 70 points or whatever it was in like the first half. I can't remember what the actual score was, but yeah, they give me like just quit on the coach vibes. So I think that's where they're at. They're in a kind of a unique situation. They're not like Old Dominion, who's like not a great team, but can get up for games, they just seem like they don't care to me. And until I see otherwise, like that's gonna be my kind of assumption. But that will do it for this weekend slate of games. Again, wish we could get a noon game so that all 4 of these aren't at 7:00 Eastern time, so I could watch multiple games. But other than that, guys, let people know where they can find you on social media, and then we'll go ahead and get out of here.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Zeke Palermo, ZekePalermo. I realized as soon as I start talking that Matt usually leads us off when we sign off, and so I'm really sorry. I could hear him start his sentence. Matt, I'm sorry about that.
It's all good, buddy. You can find me on Twitter at MiguezMatt. Also, I've been showing these Warm Weather Fans stickers. We have a very limited quantity of these. So if you are interested in one, reach out to us, and we'll figure out some cool ways to get them to you.
Well, I'll take one. Anyway, you can find you can email the show questions, comments, warmweatherfans@gmail.com. As Zeke said earlier, we are now on YouTube, so if you want to watch us talk to one another, we will be available there.
And
find
the
us on
talk of the
Twitter.
ticks.
TikTok, yeah.
The talk tick? Yeah, heck yeah.
The ticky tock.
I assure you,
Yeah.
no one calls it that.
Yeah, we're on TikTok as well. I just got into that. I just set up an account last week, so we're trying to grow that account. I'm not going to be doing any whips, any nays on that account. It's just going to be ball talk. Again, you can find me on X at Watch the Stone. We will be back next week to discuss all of these games that we just made picks on, as well as and one other thing. I posted a link on our Twitter account to our betting sheet. If people want to go through and look at kind of what our records are, what the picks are, if you're curious about how we're doing overall, last week we all kind of killed it. I thought we did pretty well as a whole group. So you can keep up with our picks and sort of how they pan out there. This has been another episode of Warm Weather Fans, the Sunbelt Podcast.